From players with a long list of accusations against them to others that are just too big of a fan of themselves, the NFL is home to a bunch of hated players. Take Ndamu Kinsu, for instance. In the NFL, there's no better way to intimidate your opponent than to have a guy like him on your team. With a name like that, you'd think he was a gentle giant, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Sue is a one-man wrecking crew, and when he steps onto the field, he's ready to do some damage. Sure, he's got a Super Bowl ring and all the talent in the world, but Sue has a bit of a reputation for being a dirty player. He's been fined more times than I can count, and at this point, it's almost become a running joke. The NFL should just have a direct deposit set up for Sue's fines because he's going to keep getting them no matter what. Despite his aggressive style of play, he remains a valuable asset to any team lucky enough to have him on their roster. This is possibly the only saving grace of a player that is otherwise hated by everyone. But he isn't the only person worthy of being on this list, because Josh Norman isn't too far behind in terms of hateability. He's a skilled player, no doubt about that, but he's also not afraid to speak his mind about other players. Some folks can't handle the truth, and they hate him for it. But let's be real, when you trash talk every player in the league, you're gonna end up dissing someone's favorite, and that's when things get ugly. Suddenly, fans from all teams are coming out of the woodwork to throw shade at Josh. Because of this, Norman is one player that seems to be hated by just most of the NFL fan base. Is all that hate justified though? Maybe not. The guy's just a little too honest for his own good. That said, the hate this next guy gets is definitely warranted. Yup, it's Kareem Hunt. If you've heard of the guy, then you know he's got a whole lot of bad blood in the league. And it's all thanks to a little thing called violence. Yep, that's right. Kareem's got some pretty serious anger management issues. Now, the incident that really got the ball rolling here was when a video emerged of him kicking a woman in a hotel. Not exactly what you'd call a great look, right? Even if there was something going on between them beforehand, nobody deserves to get kicked like that. It's just plain wrong, folks. And let me tell you, that one event is still haunting him to this day. But this list of the most hated NFL players is just getting started, because I've still got to mention Deshaun Watson. He was once one of the most talented and promising players in the NFL, but his off-field antics have left him in hot water. It seems like every other day there's another story about Watson being accused of some terrible behavior. The allegations are pretty serious, ranging from to misconduct, and it's really taken a toll on his reputation. As the accusations pile up, more and more fans are starting to turn their backs on him. It's a real shame, but at the end of the day, you gotta be responsible for your own actions, you know? Fans have moved on to other stars because the NFL doesn't have a shortage of them. Why support and spend time on a person like Watson, who's swimming in allegations and problematic behavior, when there are other, more talented athletes worthy of your attention? And this next player is also no stranger to problematic behavior. You may have guessed it, it's Jalen Ramsey. He's a player who's just too darn good for some Rams fans to hate. But nowadays, things are starting to change. Even some of the biggest supporters have had enough of him. Why, you ask? Because he's not afraid to let the world know how amazing he is. I mean, the guy is practically a walking billboard for his own greatness. Some folks out there are saying that he's got a major attitude problem, which is no surprise considering his issues with his old coach over at the Jaguars. But hey, at least he's consistent. Ramsey has only cemented his reputation as a player who's just a little too full of himself. Don't get me wrong, the guy can ball, but maybe he needs a reality check. Sometimes players end up getting hated because of the teams they're in, and Ezekiel Elliott definitely fits the bill for that sort of player. It's the age-old story. Either Either you love the Dallas Cowboys or you love to hate the Dallas Cowboys. Even one of their star players, Elliott, can't escape the wrath of non-Cowboys fans. But that's not all. There are some other reasons why Elliott finds himself on this list, like the fact that he was accused of misconduct, because let's face it, one bad move can really mess things up for a player's career, and then the NFL tacked on a suspension? Oof, that's just adding insult to injury. Cowboys haters couldn't be happier. Sometimes even the best players on the field can be hated for their life outside of it. Odell Beckham Jr. is definitely a great example of this. This guy's always in the news, and it's usually not because he did something great on the field. He's had a fair share of wacky moments that fans and reporters have put together into a timeline. But hey, most fans just want to see some good football, and they see Beckham as a bit of a roadblock for whichever team he's on, no matter how talented he is. It must really take a special kind of player to be so problematic that people literally start to disregard all of your skills and talent. But Odell has managed to achieve such a thing. That said, he's not the only player with such a record, because Richard Sherman isn't too far behind. Richard is definitely not lacking in confidence, but maybe it's a little too much for some. He's always been pretty bold with his words, and while some may love that about him, others aren't so fond. Now, I don't know what the future holds for him in terms of the NFL. After his recent actions, things are a bit up in the air. The truth is, he's in some serious trouble right now. He hasn't announced his retirement, but it's looking like he may not step foot on the field again. And a lot of this also applies to the next player. Yep, it's Tyreek Hill. Now, don't get me wrong, Hill's skills on the field are top-notch, but his off-the-field choices have made him an unwelcome sight for most fans. You see, Hill has been in some trouble before. I'm talking about domestic assault arrest and being investigated for child abuse. Now, he admitted to one of those accusations, and the other one is still up in the air, but that doesn't really matter to most fans. They hear those words, and that's an instant turnoff. I mean, who wants to cheer for a player with that kind of baggage? Am I right? Still, there's one other player that tends to be hated even more, and it's Aaron Rodgers. Now, this guy's like a quarterback superhero, the kind of guy you want on your team, but some people just can't stand the guy, and it's a mystery why. I mean, the guy's stats are off the charts. Some folks say that Rodgers is a terrible leader, a total crybaby, and one of the most self-absorbed guys on the field. Maybe he's just too in love with himself and his abilities, and that's what caused him to rub people the wrong way, including some of his fellow players. It's like he's playing his own game out there. Anyway,
yeah, I felt like once I got back out there and the adrenaline was going, that it loosened up a little bit, but then, tightened up there in the fourth quarter. I was walking up and down the sideline.
what are your thoughts on these hated NFL players?